Greetings, everybody, and welcome to Selling Yourself as a Project Professional. I'd say good morning or good afternoon or good evening, and I think I should say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Hello, world. Welcome to the people of planet Earth, which is really fantastic. I hope and ask all of you that are out there listening to do something for us. Just post in the comments as to where you're from. And to be quite honest, that does two things. One, it confirms for us that this is actually working and live and out there. And it also gives us an opportunity to see who might be out there and where they may be from. So we look forward to answering your questions today on this topic of selling yourself as a project professional. G'day, Avinash. Thank you for being with us. And Paul as well. Oh, Canada, Turkey, Oman, Nova Scotia, someone else from Canada, Louisiana. Fantastic. It's great to see everybody and hear everybody. And thank you for your comments. Oh, Zoya, good to see you again from Connecticut. Thank you for joining our session again. So we're going to talk about selling yourself as a project professional. And what I mean by project professional is it could be a project manager. It could be someone involved in Scrum as a Scrum leader. It could be a business analyst. It could be a change manager, maybe some other roles as well that are really prominent in projects and are very, very crucial for projects to occur. So that's what we're talking about, a very broad topic, maybe even, to the higher end of town, if you will, with program managers, PMO leaders, and that sort of thing. I am absolutely thrilled to have Leo with me today. And I've put a thing out that said that he owns his own recruitment business, and he's certainly a professional in this space, but you probably would be best served by knowing a little more than that. So Leo, give us 30 seconds of background beyond what it is I've shared, please, so people understand your background.
All right, for sure. If I go beyond the 30 seconds, feel free to cut me off. So, I mean, I'm a musician. I played guitar for quite some time, sang for a long time, since I was 4 years old. But mostly what I do, professionally speaking, even, music is also a project, something you got to manage. You got to get all these people together. You got to get the equipment together. That's a lot of logistics planning. That's a lot of budgeting as well. Who's going to pay for the gas? Are you going to split the gas? So with recruitment, I think I'm in a unique position because I've gone from having, 7 employees all the way down to having an automated recruitment business. And it's remote. What I do is very focused on where the client needs me most. And that's where I actually involve myself with the work. And changing from having a traditional recruitment firm to a heavily automated recruitment firm, that was a project. That was something insane. I mean, I had to, teach myself. Thank God I had my assistant ChatGPT to answer all my questions. Best resources to go to, best websites to learn from, stuff like that. And I taught myself how to automate things. I taught myself how to automate emails that go out to all the candidates, how to help clients in a more professional way. Because obviously, coming from music, I'm a very passionate person, very emotional person. So I lose my temper quite easily. And I'm sure some of my past clients would attest to that. But that's me in a nutshell.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And I think it's really good because you come to this with a project mindset, but as you talked about, you do have a recruitment business. And I think you said something really, really critical in that you are seeking to understand your clients' needs and satisfy them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think in a project management space, it's really, really important that we talk about what that context is. Now, before I launch that conversation and get you to jump in, I just want to invite everybody that's on here and seen a lot of people shooting by with from all over the place. So this is fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us. In the introduction to this, when I put it out on LinkedIn, I've said, we're here to answer your questions. So Leo and I have known each other quite a while. We can talk quite a bit. We can fill the hour just talking. And that may be interesting to some of you, and that's fine. So we'll do some of that. But really what we want to do is answer your questions on the context of, and within the context of selling yourself as a project professional. So at any point in time, please feel free, pop a question out there. We will pause between topics that we're addressing and answer your question. But please be aware there is sometimes a delay of 15 to 20 seconds between the time you hit enter and the time we see those comments on the LinkedIn Live platform that we're using. So just be aware of that. So one of the biggest things that I get asked is, how do I become a project manager? And I don't think that's the right question. I think the right question is, how do I become a project professional? Yeah. Because people's background, the way people think, the things they enjoy doing versus not enjoying so much, I think it's really important to understand. And, so we talked about Scrum leaders and project managers and business analysts and change manager. I ask questions about, where are you at today? What are you doing? When there's a party or a bunch of people going to a sporting event or something like that, are you the one that just steps in to organize it? And if the answer is no, maybe being a project manager is not coming to you naturally. Maybe it's another part of associated with a project. But Leo, what do you look for when someone says to you they're a project manager or they want to be a project manager? What do you poke after?
Me personally, I the first thing that comes to my mind as a question, especially if I'm interviewing them, is how easily can you define the process of whatever you're looking at? And that's the first thing that comes to my mind, because if you can identify the process, you can start building metrics quite easily. But if you're not building that in terms of, and it's not just the process of, like, let's say running payroll, it's the process of the communication involving payroll, it's the process of the financials behind the payroll. You're just running everything. You're the guy running with your, kind of like how Bob was looking, just calling everyone, making sure everything's running smoothly. But another thing that I like to look at also is how patient they are, how much they can withstand, pressure. And a lot of people lose their patience pretty quick because we're so used to Instagram and Facebook and Amazon. And if you're ordering food online, it's at your house in 30 minutes. So we're not used to waiting. We're not used to patience.
Yeah, I think that's really, really key. And the process bit really fascinates me because there's two levels of process in project management, at least. There's the project management process you're going to use, and there's the process associated with whatever project you're trying to run. So, you talked earlier about automating your business, right? There are processes inherent within the software you use to go from A to Z and get something automated. So it's really two levels of process. So, and there's a couple of questions, by the way. Thank you, Mary, for joining us. I see it, and great to hear from you. Ashley, how do I sell myself as a project professional versus as an admin assistant? A brilliant question. And one of the things I think is really important as we get into this is some people call admin assistants project managers. Other people, that when they have a project management role, they're expecting them to present to the board of directors. It is such a wide, broad set of terms. Sometimes the word program manager and project manager is used interchangeably. Mm-hmm. So I think, Ashley, where I would focus is on things that traditional, and I put that in the air, and I'm not even sure what that means, but what a lot of people would think of an admin assistant being, a bit of coordinator and organizer, and that is part of the project management skill set. But it's also things like understanding where risk lies, mm-hmm. right? It's also understanding that if you're going to get people involved in the project, the most important people to involve in a project within a business are the people that actually run the day-to-day operation, and they know the day-to-day operation. And when you're going to change something, people go to those folks and say, what do you think? Will this work? And they often get asked to lead those sort of initiatives, right? You need those people on the project. But if they're working on your project, they're not working in the operation of their business. So it's working with managers on how do you create this balance, right? And asking questions about it and putting forward, a premise as to when they work on the project versus when they work on the operation. Those are questions and topics that the average admin assistant, and again, typical, would not be asking. So that's one of the first ways I would look at it.
Yeah.
Leo.
Well, I would also like to add, for Ashley, another thing that you can think about is how are you branding yourself? Because I mean, you might already be a great project management professional, but if you're not branding yourself properly, then all the jobs that you're going to be getting are going to be admin assistants. So make sure that you brand yourself that direction, and you start, maybe even if you don't already have one, get a PMP certification as well, just to add some credibility behind it as well.
And yeah, I think those. Let me say something. And there's a positive and a negative to what it is that I'm saying. PMP certification, I've got one. I put it forth as what it is that I prefer to see with people. But you have to have a lot of hours of project management experience and go through, take a test and that sort of thing to get a PMP certification. It is a long process. And to a degree, you have to be heavily involved in projects anyway. Some people can go that path first. That's fantastic. There's the certified assistant CAPM, which takes less hours. The other thing is to demonstrate that you have an aptitude for the skills that are involved in becoming a project manager and getting a certification. Prince 2 is a project management methodology, prominent in Europe, England, not so much in the United States, but people do recognize it. And you can get a certification by taking a class and taking a test. I may have no project management experience formally at all, but I may have the skill set and the mindset for it. And you can go through the course and take a test and have that, which demonstrates you can understand this material. You can understand the process of managing projects and some of the elements associated with it, which is one of the things that Leo said earlier that he looks for is process understanding. So there's ways to do that. There's ways to do that. That are shorter term. That's not to say you shouldn't go for the longer term one, but there's something you could do in the shorter term as well. Okay, I see some other questions. If you've come from a hardware background, I'm going to put this on the screen. It's a longer quote. Hang on a minute. There we go. See if that'll show.
We can all read it together.
Thank you, Elliot. Now we can all read it together. All right, Elliot, great question, actually. I think there's two things that pop into my mind when I say that. And once again, Leo, please add to it. I think diversity is fantastic. Don't consider it a liability. I'd consider it a strength, first and foremost. I mean, we've talked about you can communicate in different environments if you've been through that sort of thing. You understand process in different environments associated with this. You've probably seen things that work and things that don't work. So you've seen risk in different environments. There's a big debate about whether you have to come from the industry to manage a project in that industry, right? I came from technology, IT. I worked for IBM for nearly 20 years. And I managed a lot of projects in IT, but I managed projects outside of IT because it's down to process and communication and people and priorities and risks. And other folks that are involved in the project can fill in the gaps where you don't have that expertise. But if you do have an understanding of process and a basic understanding of how technology works, or how the technology in that environment might work.
Yeah, also, it's a very unique combination, like biotech and software engineering. I mean, you're going to need an opportunity on that combo. I'm not going to sugarcoat that, or you got to start your own business and think of something creative. But if that, there's a saying, when success is when preparation meets opportunity, and you're already prepared. You're just waiting for that opportunity at this point. If you don't want to take the initiative and get something off the ground yourself.
But I think, if you're looking for a project, I think the assumption there is, is he looking for a project, Elliot, that has both? There's few projects that do. Fantastic. You are a great fit when you do, but you could do one or the other.
Yeah.
And maybe even introduce the concepts and benefits of one into the other if the environment is right. So yeah, I didn't hear anything but strengths in that comment versus liabilities. Okay, I'm going to keep moving through, and hopefully I won't miss some of these as they roll by the screen real quickly. So bear with me. Okay, let me see. How can I accept a job offer as a senior PM and I'm currently working as a PM? I'm not sure I understand fully that question. In other words, are you concerned about leaving the project that you're at right now and taking a job someplace else? So I'm going to ask maybe that you clarify that a little bit, because I mean, the literal answer to that question is just say yes and make a transition.
Yeah.
But I think there's something more to that. So please let us know. And Mohammed has a question that is pretty, I think I started to answer that question. Is the project manager dependent on technical background? This is a great debate. Again, process understanding, the ability to communicate, having a breadth of experience, understanding business, understanding risk. I would want to have someone that has the technical expertise that I don't have as a member of the project, as maybe the senior team leader or a technical advisor. If you've really taken a big step away, but no, I don't think you're dependent on. You're dependent on technical background, but it doesn't have to be you. A lot of people assume the project manager and the technical expert are the same person. And when you get to a bigger project, even within your industry, right? For instance, I've done a little bit in cloud computing, but as much as I'm an IT project manager, if we're going to do a lot with cloud computing, I'm going to want somebody else by my side who has more experience than me. Absolutely. So I think it's really a big. Leo, any comments on that from your perspective? And how do you sort through that if you have someone coming to you wanting to get a job that is a project manager or in a project as a project professional? It's not in their background.
The first thing is that they need to know that they're not necessarily intertwined, but if you accept a job as a project professional, you're not going to be doing the technical stuff, period. You're going to be supervising it all and making sure that everything's running smoothly, but you're not going to be doing the technical work yourself. You're not going to be you're just kind of coordinating, making sure everything is going smoothly, and that's it. So if you are planning on taking on like a technical project as a project manager, don't go in with the assumption that you're going to be doing it, but you will be coaching, mentoring, and communicating between everyone.
Yeah. I think that's great observation. And I think related to that observation is this comment, which I'm going to show. Prashant, thank you. I hope I'm pronouncing names right properly. The project manager, jack of all trades. And sometimes there are people that are hiring managers. Like I said, the project manager and the technical expert are that one person, and that's what they're looking for. And that can be really, really hard. However, I don't want to diminish the fact that good project managers have got a breadth of experience. They are good communicators. They're good analysts. They're good at understanding when something technically doesn't make sense. They're good at finance and detail work. I mean, or at least somewhat good at it, right? There's this breadth of experience that I think makes a good project manager, and you don't have to have it all necessarily when you start, but it's something you're going to have to, I would say, a desire to pick up as you go along. Leo.
So on that sense, also, I've gotten very technical and scientific into my approach with human resources and recruitment. So I've started to find that I have a problem communicating to potential investors, to potential partners, to potential whatever, on non-technical jargon. And so communication is really important. So even if you do get a job where you're the technical project manager, you need to be able to communicate to people technical things that are happening without the technical words. And it's so easy to forget how little people use those words or know those words. So we can get really caught up really quick in the technical details and the wording, and we forget normal words.
Yeah, 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 and being able to bridge between the technical people and the business people who may not, even though they depend on those technical people, they may not understand that, to be the communication bridge, which can a lot of times falls into the business analyst role, right?
I mean, this is also
But
kind of like a similar dilemma that we've been facing with, the people, the scientists that are backing and supporting the shift on how we are, polluting the earth and what's it called?
green,
So we're trying to shift to green energy, and they're trying to communicate the damage that we're creating, but they're using so much technical jargon that the rest of the world doesn't get it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Let me show this. This is a question for the day. I expected some sort of question like this, and I'm glad you posed it. Thank you very much. For project manager student, no experience at handling project, what position should they look for in the industry, and what course should they undertake? Okay. I would say you want to take whatever opportunity that you have to run projects. Look for volunteer organizations. Go to, Project Management Institute meetings or other project, there are other, project associations as well. And ask for an opportunity. They often hold conferences. Volunteer to be part of the conference. Get yourself entrenched in the project world to the greatest degree you possibly can.
But start documenting everything now, because at
And
some
documenting it. Excellent.
yeah, you're going to
Yes.
want it on your resume at some point, and you don't want it to slip years by, and you're like, oh, what was that project that I worked on, and what was my achievements when I did that?
Not only your achievements, but also where you stumbled, where there might have been an issue, right? I learned about risk because this happened. Okay. It's a
Yeah, but
very, very
also
real discussion versus saying, oh, yeah, I've done project stuff.
yeah,
Right.
but also another thing is that one mistake that I made is I waited until my last course to use one of my electives in psychology, and then I realized that I wish I studied psychology. So if you're, just fresh into university right now, take all your electives in year one and just take every kind of course that's out there. Because you don't know if you might end up shifting to something else, but exposing yourself to the whole world never hurts at all. So that's a
Yeah.
tip from my past experience.
Yeah. This is an interesting question. Thank you. I'm going to say Paula, but it may be Paula.
Paula.
Paula. Wow, that's a big question. I should pass this to you first, Leo. As a person that I split my time between Australia and the U.S.
Mhm.
And I'm coming to you from Minnesota right now, and Leo's coming to you from Jordan. So this truly is a world based discussion. So
Yeah,
I
I
think
mean
this
that's
is a
great.
really
I
good
mean,
question. Let me have you go first for this one, because you'll have a perspective that might be slightly different than mine.
so I mean, first off, I'd like to say that a lot, you'd be surprised how much of the world population speaks English. Um, but you know, it's more most of the miscommunication. Actually, when I was studying for my GPHR exam, one thing that people actually find the most miscommunications on isn't language; it's the cultural differences. So if you can, research and get your hands on, Hofstadter's seven criteria of defining a country's culture, and you can type that in and then apply it to a specific country on Google, you're going to go in very well educated and prepared for the culture shock that's going to happen. There's always going to be someone who speaks English fluently, understands what you're dealing with, and they're going to be ready to help you out, translate. But it also doesn't hurt if you know that you're going on a long-term assignment next year or so on, start taking the language courses ahead of time. I mean, even if you don't master it, 1 word, 2 words shows at least appreciation of the local culture. I know that when we go to Paris and you speak English to someone, they're going to hold it against you big time. So if you just say bonjour, comment ça va, everyone's going to be really appreciative that you're at least trying, and that's all you really need.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the cultural element is really very, very important to understand. And I have found, in addition to trying to speak a little bit of language and bridge that, and I will confess, I know a lot of people in the U.S. and so much in the U.K. I haven't spent as much time in the U.K., although I've done a couple of engagements there. A lot of people in the U.S. do not try. They get very, very U.S. centric. And I've tried not to do that. And I think it's really important to try to bridge that gap. But understanding the culture of what's happening in the U.S. or the U.K., if you're trying to work with them or trying to be taken seriously, I think is very, very important. And even between the U.K. and the U.S., it's different. Yeah. I mean, I can talk a lot about the U.S. and Australia, right? In the U.S., and one big thing that is going to make a big difference, and just to make a point and as an example of the cultural element we're talking about, selling yourself is very much built into the U.S. system of how you're educated, how you're brought out, how you're told to get yourself into the work world. You're promoting yourself. That is not true in Australia. Promote yourself other than a very, very little bit, and you're going to be viewed as a person that thinks they're better than others.
Yeah.
And so if you take the attitude when you're working with one that you work with the other, you're going to be missing the ball on that one.
My dad ingrained this in me all my life. Have humility, because you never know who you're talking to.
Right.
You might know their name, but that doesn't mean you know who they are. And when you have humility, you actually learn a lot more, and you're more open to different perspectives. And in reality, I mean, you don't read one newspaper and make the assumption that you have all the facts straight. You got to read a bunch of them. So it's the same concept with everything else as well. So
yeah. I have to agree with the humility thing, but understand there's a degree of its acceptance is going to be different. As a positive thing, it's going to be different in different countries with different cultures.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Elliot, I see. So thank you for answering your question. You're very welcome. That is what we are here for. Let's bring another question up from Safa.
Safa.
Do you want to go first with this one? You want me to go first?
I do want to go. Look, recruiters want to give you the first pick, and that's the fact right off the bat. But recruiters aren't the people that make those decisions. Recruiters will send a short list of I viewed or I screened resumes to the hiring manager with their expected salaries and so on. But it's up to the hiring manager or the HR manager to choose who's being interviewed based on the business needs. Because a lot of the things, PhD by default means you're going to be requesting a massive salary scale in the corporate world. So keep in mind that a lot of companies are cutting budgets on salary scales. Or even, I mean, we see how many people are going unemployed right now in the States. So they're trying to minimize their expenses right now. And if you look on the grand scheme of things, there's no way an innocent little recruiter is the one that's making those decisions. But we definitely wish we could give you first pick because we believe in quality, and that's what a recruiter is supposed to be doing.
Yeah. I'd say there's a couple of things that come to mind, and I'm going to say something that I don't mean, but I hear. I don't agree with this. Okay. It is a prejudice that people with a PhD are going to be too theoretical and they're not going to be pragmatic because they've talked about, these possibilities all the time. It's sad. And that is a preconceived notion that some people have. I've actually worked with a person that just now got a job. Her name is going to remain nameless. A brilliant individual, extraordinarily, down to earth and grounded, and is very much focused on the pragmatic, but has to convince people that is the case. And that's exactly what I would answer your question as. I said, do what you can to talk about the pragmatic, what's gone right, what's gone wrong, how you dealt with it. I mean, talk about real on the ground, dirty, because projects are always dirty to a degree. They don't always go as planned, right? And I think focus on what you've learned and what you've seen from that, and lead with that in a resume or a discussion or a cover letter, that says that you have the education that shows that your ability to learn is keen, and your ability to deal with things that are theoretical may be very, very strong. But talk about the pragmatic as well, and say that adds to that diversity. Like I said, project professional needs breadth. Use that. Use that as a strength instead of a weakness. You're a pragmatic person with a PhD.
So, I mean,
I was where I would go with this. I hope that helps.
I have a similar, kind of, I don't know if you can call it an analogy, but when I was proactively looking for work really aggressively, I like to think of myself as a strategic thinker, and I would love to be in a strategic position, even if it's just an entry level at an innovation department, But the problem is, I know for a fact, tested, that I'm the guy that makes things happen, which means I need to be on the ground. So as much as I would like to be in that strategic situation, I can keep applying to those jobs all the time, but I'm not going to get that job because that hasn't been tested. It's not on my resume. I mean, aside from my own business, of course.
Yeah. Let's move on. There's other questions here. This is great. Thank you for sharing these questions. This makes this, we're here to help you to the greatest degree possibly can. So we can presume what your questions are. Actually getting them is fantastic. So we're happy to just sit here and answer questions. New MSc project management graduate. Congratulations, by the way. Let's start with that. Starting their career in project management. What advice do you have? First of all, don't embrace your project plan too tightly. It's probably the first thing, right? No plan survives reality. And that's probably the first thing. The second thing is, and I had a session on this that's recorded. Go to my LinkedIn, and there's only like 2 Bob McGannons out there. Only one with white hair like this. There's a previous session that I did talks about tailoring your project methodology. So don't just use the project methodology straight up, because that often doesn't work. I think it's won't work in the ideal manner. Be flexible, and not to say that you're going to do things differently and not tell your stakeholders that that's what you're going to do. But look to be as flexible as you possibly can as you get into this. And as you get more and more projects under your belt, your intuition for what it is that is going to work well and will not work as well will increase, as well as your understanding of the history of your stakeholders. You might be approaching something and thinking this is not high risk, and your experience tells you it's not high risk, and you haven't experienced much difficulty in this project space. But if you have a key stakeholder or a sponsor that has had projects in that environment that have really caused some problems, you've got to treat this as high risk. As far as they're concerned, unless you do treat it as a high risk environment, they're not going to be comfortable. And an uncomfortable stakeholder means there's going to be an uncomfortable project professional wherever there is as well.
Yeah.
So I would say go into this with a very, very open mind and understand the experience of your stakeholders, and keep some flexibility in mind. Leo?
And not just with projects, but I mean, if if you're trying to get on investors and stuff, and you're not being any project you're doing, if you're even being interviewed, if it's difficult, a lot of people will be like, no, it's not difficult, I've been through 100 times. The problem is that people who are senior with that experience, I'm not saying in position, but with that experience, they're going to call you on the bluff very fast. So it's better to put them at ease by letting them know it will be hard, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah. I hope that helps. By the way, if anybody wants to have more dialogue with the two of us or either of us, we are both on LinkedIn. It is the easiest way to get with us. And before we close, we'll put our names up on the screen and make sure you get that, and spelling and all that other stuff. And please feel free to reach out to us on LinkedIn. Timothy has posed an interesting question.
All right.
Go ahead. I mean, you're the portfolio guy. Building a portfolio, Leo,
I love digital marketing, SEO. I love personal branding. I'm obsessed with personal branding myself. I've changed my personal brand probably about 20 times over the past couple of years, and because I get obsessed about it, I really enjoy it. So what you're doing so far, great, you got all the check marks so far, but when you're not posting regularly as well, you're not coming up in the feed as frequently, and so even if you follow or a bunch of recruiters are following you, if you're not posting, out of sight, out of mind. So also you want to portray your expertise. I mean, I have to do this so often just to keep my client acquisition going, but when I'm posting videos, I'm proving my expertise. I'm both helping candidates and proving my expertise, that I understand recruitment almost better than hopefully everyone else in my industry, which I know is a big claim. So I'm not definitely, but
weren't you talking about humility earlier?
well, there's always someone bigger. There's always someone who knows more, and I just don't know how many of those people there are, because they don't even teach recruitment in HR at universities. I mean, they might cover it briefly.
Yeah. Developing war wounds for what it is you're doing. Be it project management, recruitment, in the both. Yeah.
But no, post regularly, be on multiple platforms, try to be proactive. Right. But I'm not saying post different content on each platform, because that's going to be extremely exhausting for you. Just repost the same content on multiple platforms, and you never know who's going to see it. You never know what opportunity might come up, but just being out there as well, not just having your resume out there. I mean, which is effectively what we're talking about on what you mentioned.
The other thing that I would add to that, I think that's fantastic. I think you're spot on, Leo. The other thing that I would add to it, and this is my own experience, is, and I don't know, Timothy, if this is your thing, or anybody that's listening, if this is your thing. If it is, I would say leverage it. The biggest thing that helped me was making presentations, live presentations online, the ability to talk about project management, not be boring, be a bit entertaining, come up with a different perspective on things. I mean, I'll make statements, bigger statements like, there's nothing more important in project management than risk. If there was no risk, why would you need a project manager? And then you just make it entertaining and a bit of a different perspective, right? I talk about intelligent disobedience in leadership in the work, which is a term that comes from seeing eye dogs. So if someone asks me what it is I do, I say I use techniques to teach dogs to help leaders be better leaders. And what? What? I mean, guess what? You've got someone's attention, and you're not saying what everybody else is you're saying, and you're not being boring about it. So that helps a lot in my personal experience.
No, but it's true. I mean, I had one video where it was just a 1 minute long video, but I was sitting down professionally, and I had it on a reel on Instagram and on LinkedIn, and that's the same format. And I was really professional, sitting in a chair with my blazer and my suit, trying to be really professional. I got maybe 5 likes. And then now I did one where I was really unprofessional and like waving my hand and talking like a crazy person. I still gave value. The content was valuable, but that one went crazy. I had
Yeah.
the engagement was insane because it was very engaging.
Yeah. I think take the material seriously, but don't take yourself seriously in the process.
Yeah.
Helps a lot. Cynthia has posed a question. Let's put this one up.
Yeah.
I think Leo just answered your question.
Okay, so I always think the more simple something is, the better it is. But at the same time, you have so many people that read one line of a job description, and then you have out of 200 candidates, you might have 5 that actually read through it properly and knows that that role is definitely for them. So
And that helps the hiring manager very much when that's the truth.
yeah, and it does. But also the job descriptions need to have a lot of details in it because I mean, I say this very often on my LinkedIn, and I'm trying to help candidates understand. Don't be angry with the recruiter. He's an innocent person. He's just doing his job. But so when we're doing a proactive search for people with the skills we need, so what we're really looking for is skills. We're not looking for people necessarily, and that's how we recruit based on meritocracy. We're not recruiting based on job titles. We're not recruiting based on any of that, because you could have been an accountant but have worked as a recruiter, but you never actually had the job title recruiter. So that's just a brief example. But when you have all the details written down, we use those as keywords in our search.
Right.
And the keywords narrows it down from thousands of people down to 10 people, so it makes things a lot easier for the recruiter. And I think that the recruiter should be able to simplify it on the candidate end a little bit more.
And there is a reality check I want to put into this discussion as well. It is not out of the realm of possibility that they have put, whoever it is that's posted this job, has a person in mind internal to their company. And they are hoping that's the person they want to hire, but they have to do, for whatever reason, they have to put this out, to put a post out to see if anybody else shows up.
Yeah. So
and that profile is meant to give that one person an advantage. That doesn't mean that you couldn't compete with them, and they might go, "Oh wow, this is surprising. I've got someone that's got competing skills."
Yeah.
So it's a bit of reality. And the one thing that I always advise when someone says something to me like that says, I think this is happening, I'm going to say, yeah, it probably is happening. The best way to get a job is through a network versus responding to an ad as an unknown individual. Develop your network. Spend time at project management conferences. Spend time, at project management chapter meetings for PMI or the International Institute of Project Management, or whatever it is that might be available in your region. Get to know people in the industry to the greatest degree you possibly can. And the people that get the best jobs are jobs that aren't even posted. More often than not. And it's through people So, as much as we've become virtual, and LinkedIn helps, and you can establish relationships and get discussions going that way as well. Put some things on when people comment, engage with them. Do a network.
Build a
Leo,
relationship.
sorry, I know you were trying to say something.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to take this chance to also say, I mean, if you know for a fact that you have every single one of those things on the requirements under your belt, and you still get a rejection without being contacted, there could be a number of reasons. But in the perspective of a third party, recruiters most of the time don't make a lot of mistakes. But what happens is that either the performance management specialist who's in-house did not run a proper skill gap analysis, and it didn't go properly into the job description, and they later figured out, changed the job description, And that made absolutely all the candidates redundant all of a sudden. So, I mean, there's so many things that can go wrong in trying to post a job or get candidates. And it's not an exact science. It's not. I mean, look at the population size that we have. Look at the unemployment rates that we have. Look, I mean, imagine the pressure that recruitment departments and these companies that are launching ATS systems, recruitment software systems. There's so much pressure to get something that's honestly not that easy to build. So
Yeah.
it takes patience and communication on everyone's side, big time.
And I think the other thing to think about, Cynthia, and for everybody here, but I'm saying Cynthia because it's her question. There are organizations that think the project manager, or that want or expect the project manager and the technical expert to be the same person. And those job descriptions are different than organizations that view the project manager as a project manager, hopefully with experience in some space, but they're really looking for deep project management skill and experience. They're going to put a lesser emphasis on the particulars of a project that they want you to run or their environment. So you kind of tell that when you're reading. So think about that as well. Look, we have a lot of questions here. They just keep coming. This is great. Let me just pop Maria's thing up here. I might say this is a really particular sort of a thing. I want to make a brief comment about it. Leo, you can make a brief comment about it, and let's move on. This is a very, very particular individual situation.
Again, human interaction is especially in recruitment, is gonna start decreasing big time because the volume of people looking for work is insane.
Yeah.
It is insane.
Yeah.
I mean, people are trying to connect with me on my personal LinkedIn just to ask me about a job they applied to like 3 months ago.
Yeah.
And I can't accept them into my network. I mean, LinkedIn limits people, I think, to 30,000 connections. And I want to keep that as a clean with like people I actually know as much as possible. To be fair, I did connect with a lot of people at the beginning.
But then you ask people to follow you. That's
Yeah.
one way to follow you instead.
Yeah.
But I think what we're talking about here, Maria, and feel free to reach out to me. I can talk about some of the particulars because I've seen this situation before, and I'd be more than happy to talk to you about this versus a group thing. This gets back to networking. People understanding who you are and the strength you are and that sort of thing. And I know that's a lot harder if you're transitioning, particularly if you're not in the USA yet. But I'd be more than happy to talk to you in detail about that, because that's a particular sort of situation. I don't know how many people on this call are going to have that sort of a deal going on. So I'll move off from here. I just want to recognize Michelle's made a couple of nice comments about critical thinking when you don't have a technical background. Absolutely. I think critical thinking is one of the core skills of a good project manager. And I'll take LinkedIn learning courses on project management, seeing I have a number of them out there. I'm thank you for saying that, Michelle. It'd be a little self-serving if I made that comment myself. But anyhow, okay. Let's go to Eli's question.
This is a very project management specific question. This is you, Bob.
Yeah. Look, I think talk about what you've done, Eli. I was involved in this initiative. Doesn't matter what your job title is. In fact, I don't, resumes that I see that talk about the job title and what the role was. Okay. What did you do? Show how you cut the time that it takes to execute a process by 20% and saved $100,000, or even if it's $10,000. I mean, it doesn't matter, right? Talk about what you've done.
Yeah.
Yes, you might have a job title, but telling me what the job title and your responsibility is gives me a bit of context, but doesn't tell me what you've done. And I think that's what you need to focus on here, is what you've done. And you certainly have enough understanding and background that PMI has accepted you to get your PMP, and you've passed the test to do that. So there's a great premise there. But I don't give a rip about what your job title is. I mean, one of the things that I've just said, even within the project world, is a project manager could be a project librarian all the way to somebody that might be briefing the board of directors.
Yeah.
There is a lot of breadth out there in what people think a project management is, a
I mean,
project manager is. So, talk about what it is that you've done.
just as a brief, I mean, I often tell, whoever is asking, does your resume show metrics about your past? Because metrics is what's going to get you a job or not, because they have a target, they have a quota, and if you know how to get there, you're more likely to get the job. But also on your resume, and I tell this to so many people, make sure you Google ATS friendly resume. There's a type of formatting that if you don't use it, you're going to get rejected from every job you apply to. I give them away for free on my company website. I'll share the link in the comments later on. Yeah, if you guys have any questions on ATS friendly, feel free to
Cool.
let us know.
We have a couple of clarifications on questions that we've asked, so this is really good. So someone's work. So this was the question about, do you leave your PM job to take a senior PM job? I'd say so. So this is good. So you received a job offer from a new company as a senior PM, and I want to make this more generic versus specifically to you. I would understand what the role is in terms of how the company defines it. A senior PM in one company, like we were just talking about, the set of responsibilities under the title of project manager, senior project manager, whatever, can vary greatly. So you'll want to ensure that what it is that you're taking is a job that is going to present what you want it to for you. That could be, in a new field, which is always a good thing. It could be more responsibility if you feel like you're comfortable to be able to do it. That's fine. But I think the broader question here is there's a lot of people that really, really are passionate about their industry, and they really have to be specific about their experience and stay there. I don't think many people are just going to dabble in and out of being space launch vehicle experts. Probably going to stick in that industry. It's a really particular and very deep sort of an industry, whereas others can prove themselves to be adept at managing projects in a number of different environments, and a lot of people that work in the consulting world will do that. So it really is a bit of what's happening in the industries that you're interested in, and what are you interested in, and it keeps you excited as well. So I think.
Well, I mean, I'm going to add a kind of like a funny note there, is if you have something you're passionate about, make sure you can turn it into work. Because for a while, I was trying to do music and do live shows and try to make a living out of that. And it slowly ruined my passion. So make sure you really clarify, this thing that I'm passionate about is for me, not for the world.
Yeah. Paula has asked, put in a number of points associated with this relative to her questions related to the background, and particularly having not worked with UK companies might be a disadvantage. And I think the point that we made at one point in time earlier was understanding the cultural differences, and I think the cultural differences and understanding those and being able to convey those in a discussion with someone in the research that you've done, and say, I wouldn't say you've worked there when you haven't, but say, look, I've done some research. I really want to learn. I really want to understand. And here's what I perceive from based on, what I've read, what I've heard, the discussions I've had with other people. I think representing yourself as a person who is attuned to the fact that there are cultural differences and wants to understand what those are, if someone's not going to be comfortable because you haven't worked in the culture, you can't change that if you haven't worked in the culture. But you can, talking about how you appreciate that and the fact that you're doing work to be able to understand it and understand how best you can operate within that. I think that's true for countries to a degree. It's also true from one company to another.
Yeah.
Company culture can change. So it doesn't necessarily have to mean you are going from one country to another. I mean, I've had discussions with folks who are coming out of the military and going into the corporate world that aren't corporations that deal with military subcontractor, and they're not contractors to the military, and you've got some transition things going on there as well, and it is a cultural transition of what's expected from a leader in many instances. Or again, some preconceived notion as to what someone who has been a leader in the military environment might be like. So it doesn't, that has a more broad concern, and it's a matter of being able to talk about, yes, I haven't worked here, but this is what I understand, and this is what I'm striving to do, and here's how my strengths work in that environment, and here's how maybe they don't, and I'm going to want to be mindful of that and do some other things. I think to be honest about that is probably the best way to do it.
I think at the beginning it's just going to take some trial and error.
I often hear questions like this, and it's a very valid question, and I want to give a more broad answer to this in the few minutes that we've got left. Look, any suggestions for a new career path? The first thing, what's your passion? What could you talk about easily? And I would be looking for roles in that world.
Yeah.
And talk about what it is you've done and what it is you've learned. Look at what's in job descriptions that might be of interest. Because we're talking particularly about project professionals, what projects have you worked on? What roles have you had in those projects? What have you learned? How have you succeeded? What have you made? What contributions have you made? And what are you striving to make? So,
yeah, I mean, it's hard to give a suggestion on a career path. The career coach, they call them career coach because they can't even tell you what you should do. Only your comprehensive details of your life. So they coach you on finding the right mix of things that will suit you well. But you got to figure it out. You got to put some pen on paper and write down an inventory things that you enjoy doing.
That's where I'd start too. Great question from Kelly. I think it is at any rate. Go ahead.
I would ask some technical details about a project they're currently working on. Because if you do that, you're going to shock them that you know about the project in the first place, not just the role, which is what everybody does. They come in, they just discuss the role, and then they leave. But when you go in and you ask about a specific project because you've done the research ahead of time, you've asked people that might be working at that company, you've got some information. So it's not just about asking, but also creating your own kind of elevator pitch on how you can add value to that specific project.
What I would also say, Kelly, from a different perspective is, and one of the most impressive interviews I've had. All right. So if you Kelly, came into my office and said, my project experience of where I've been here, these things normally have worked well. These things haven't worked so well. So I've had to do blah, 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 blah to try to overcome that. What works well in projects in your environment and what doesn't? Or what's not working so well in your environment that you hope that I'd be able to address? You're talking about your own experience. You're talking about your own pragmatic experience and what it is you've seen. And you're getting a perspective on what a project manager is like, in the company that you're seeking to be part of. That's a great question. And then the other question is tell me what level of authority a project manager has. because then you get an understanding of, is this a person that is just going to be sort of a, a recorder of what's happening on a project, or the person that might be reporting to the board of directors,
Yeah.
or where in that scale that is. So
So, I
how would you
mean,
describe the authority and
also a
expectations?
really important question to ask that's not specific to PM. Ask why the role exists, because that might change your mind on taking the job with the company.
Yeah. Look, we have a few more questions. Leo, do you have another 10 or 15 minutes?
I'm good.
We're scheduled for an hour. There's some more questions. I'd love to get to them, so I'm going to try to get to them and stay on here for another 15 minutes to do that and make some comments, because I'm really appreciative of the fact that everybody has these questions. So I want to get to as many as I possibly can. And so we'll try to be a little brief. Again, you could always reach out to us. If I must choose between a master in project management and be a PMP from PMI, what's your experience, Leo, in terms of what
I
people
think,
accept more?
I mean, as far as I knew, the PMI is the Management Institute, which gives the project management professional certification.
Right. But I think he's saying between a master's degree in project
Oh,
management and getting his PMP.
I mean, that depends on your financial situation. If you're not in a hurry and you have the cash to go back to university, a master's is always more long lasting than a professional certification, because they expire pretty quick and you have to continuously renew them. Um, and I think a master's is normally a lot more comprehensive and dives a lot more into detail than a professional certification. But if you are strapped on, let's say, cash or time, or you already have a lot of things going on, a professional certification is the way to go. I mean, yeah.
My world, and that's not comprehensive, my world is, I'm going to be giving someone a positive tick mark if they have a master's degree in project management, a positive tick mark if they have their PMP. Probably equally, I'm going to look at the experience people have, and or if I'm looking for someone that I think is going to fit well culturally in our organization, if they don't have experience and I'm happy to do that, then I might go forward from there. So quick sort of answer for that. Let me see. Sometimes some comments come out like Melissa, your comment. I'm not sure I understand the context of what I said at the time, or what one of us said at the time when you said that. If there's more comments, we'll go from there. Mohammed, 6 years experience, waterfall projects. Because I don't have real agile experience, so I could make this transition. Wow. It is a very different environment, probably more different than you think. Actually working in an agile environment, knowing what agile is about and how it works is good, but actually getting into the agile environment is a lot more, more different than people think. I would, again, maybe, see if there's a volunteer opportunity, or within your industry, if there's a like IT areas, even within mineral resources and everything, that you might find agile projects. See if you can get yourself involved in that, because I will tell you, I probably have many companies refuse your application because you don't have real agile experience. For me at least, it was a really big learning experience. So
So,
actually participating in one of those is a lot different than you
so
might
you
think.
would be surprised about how many small and micro businesses and financed startups, even financed and non-financed, need free help. So if they're working in an environment that you're looking for, just walk in and be like, hey, I want to volunteer as long as you give me a certification that I worked here for this amount of time and I got this specific experience that you will get from them as well. So they would be so happy to get extra help, especially when you're starting off a business or you're a small business with a small budget, to have someone as experienced as you come in and volunteer that help just for a certificate, just for a certificate. You're good. You're golden.
There's a big question, a big question. Look, I know some organizations that have offshored their project management. So the project manager is in one other country, some other country, and all of the other project team members, or the majority of the project team members, certainly the technical ones, are someplace else. A project manager in India, a project team in the U.S., for instance, or split. The success of that model, in my experience, is how good a relationship gets built. Yes, there are tools that might be able to help us, create some different connections and share some things. But I say this about email, and I know there's things more sophisticated than email. Email is a communication confirmation tool, not a communication tool. If you've got questions, if you're trying to sort through a problem, whatever the case may be, emails back and forth, unless you can boil it down into really yes, no answers. In my experience, it doesn't work. The need for face-to-face communication, the need for dialogue, the need for cultural understanding, like we were talking about earlier, is not going to be made up for entirely in a digitally connected world. Now, do I think AI might help us with things like project scheduling and that sort of thing, which may do, there's people that are full-time project schedulers. Might they need to work in that environment and work with AI based stuff to do their job? If they want to do it the old way, probably not so good.
I already have a software that schedules everything for me.
Yeah. So
but
there's going to be some things. I think the need for cultural relationship, the need for understanding risk, and the need for insight, I think it's still going to be there. Personally,
I also kind of think that in terms of automation, a lot of functional roles will be redundant. But these people that are leading the way for AI and for automation, they have a responsibility to how the world works financially, but also the stability of our economics in the future, right? So they need to be regulated to make sure that whatever they're building, it's a sustainable economic situation for everyone. There's a big question mark that I have in that future. So
yeah. All right, let me by the way, if those who hadn't noticed, in the comment feed, Leo has put the resume templates link in there for everybody to pick up. There's Paul says thank you, and thank you for your question, Paul, and being part of this. I appreciate it. Justin got a taste for PM for a short period of time, taking courses to get skills. Fantastic. I've worked transition PM, get more experience. I've heard previously in the live about volunteer work. The Project Management Institute, the International Institute of Project Management. There are project management associations. They normally run meetings and sometimes have conferences. Great way to invite. Putting one of those things together is definitely a project. Local churches, organizations, and putting together events. There's just a lot of ways that you can get experience. I would certainly ask within your company that you might be working for, or within your organization, if that's relevant, if there's projects that you could, take on or help with. A lot of people will look for people that are willing to do that, sometimes even as a volunteer basis, or just, on the job hours or after job hours. But volunteer organizations, neighborhood organizations, churches, they normally need people, and they won't ask for a project manager. They want someone to coordinate this thing. It's normally an event or something like that. The project management skills and experience you pick up from that are really relevant. Yeah. So yeah, that's why we talked about volunteer work.
But there's a lady here, Michelle Rocky, that gave a really good tip to the person earlier asking about transitioning to agile. She said try a hybrid approach to waterfall projects. I think that's a great idea, actually, because you can still maintain your income without having to volunteer for free.
Yeah, I want to hire Michelle to come to all of these. Michelle, you're always invited to my talk. She's makes some really good comments on the last LinkedIn Live that I did as well. So Michelle, you're always welcome. Let me put it that way. And I do appreciate your participation and putting things out there. That's great to have this. I mean, Leo and I aren't the only people with experience in this, so it's fantastic when other people post comments. All right, we have 5 minutes left. Last set of questions. This is the last one that's posted, but if someone has anything left, we'll go for another 5 minutes. What other certifications do we recommend for a PMP certified professional with agile certifications already? Wow, I enjoy the ambition. I would look for, if there's roles that you want or an industry that you want or whatever, I would look for the certifications that they're looking for or they're hoping for at this point, is what I do. From a project management point of view, you have PMP certification, you have agile certification. At some point in time, someone's going to say, wow, that guy knows his projects, and he's got certification, so he's well educated. What do we need? It may be outside of project management. It may be actually in the technical domain. Would probably be my first reaction to answer that question. There's somebody here that says, couple of thank yous. We appreciate that. Can't find the link for the ATS resume.
I'll share it one more time.
Okay.
There you go.
So there's the link again for the resume. It should be it's the resume templates one. How PMP may be beneficial. Sorry, let me put this one up. How would PMP be beneficial for a safety professional? Look, I'm not too familiar with the safety industry. It would seem to me that if you are looking to run projects in that environment and safety and I'd say retrofitting a building or an organization or changing process or whatever, to me is certainly a project. And if you've got people within the management of the safety professional businesses you're looking at that appreciate and understand project management, then having a PMP is a great stamp on your forehead that says that you've dedicated some time and effort and experience to getting that certification.
So, Mr. Tayyib, also, back in the day, I was doing an employee relations event with a big factory. Don't need to mention the name of the company, but basically, we had the iftar. It was a Ramadan iftar, and I, had to coordinate with all of the people setting up the tents, setting up the food, the everything, and they got up on ladders and stuff. So a lot of people were fasting, and I had to get certified by the business really quick on EHSS. And when I did, all of a sudden, it fell upon me to make sure that all the names were registered with the security to make sure everyone's coming in. Yeah. And there was a lot of coordination. It was chaotic for me because I didn't have a PMP. And I think if I did, I would have been a lot more prepared.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just want to go back, by the way, to the question about other certifications. I did some work with Boeing at one point, and I had to get certified in their project management methodology before I could. And I was willing to do it. And that, led to me being able to work with them. So one last question, and then we'll close this down. How can schedule and risk management coexist in one job together? The question I am, how can they not? How can they not is a better question. To me, how you put your schedule together can actually introduce risk or can address risk. And addressing risk sometimes takes time and money. So I can't separate schedule and risk management, to be honest with you. If I'm managing a project, how you build your schedule, is going to introduce risk. If you're trying to do things really quickly, if you're going to do things in your schedule without the right skills, you're introducing risk to the project. So
you need
yeah,
to, I mean, if you're talking about, I mean, I recently took a course with Harvard Medical School on positive psychology. And, you know, loving yourself and taking care of yourself is really important because, I mean, if you're not getting enough sleep because you're misscheduling things, there's personal risk, there's corporate risk, there's so many different kinds of risk.
Yeah.
And it's really important not to forget ourselves. We need to love ourselves and set boundaries.
Yeah. Ashad, I have a feeling you might be going a different direction with this than what we've answered. I'm not sure. Feel free to reach out to one of us. Let me take this banner down, put our names up once again. There we go. So people can reach out to us in LinkedIn, follow us, send us messages for questions maybe that we haven't answered yet. I'm going to go back to the comments before we shut this down. Yes, and Marcus said, yes, that's the classic iron triangle. It sure is. Time, cost, scope.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I didn't know what that was. All right.
Yeah, time, cost, scope. Sometimes called the triple constraints. Often you'll have quality in the middle because whatever you decide on those three things is going to affect the quality of what you're going to produce.
Awesome.
Okay. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Leo, for joining us. And again, we're here and hope to help whenever we can, which is why we're doing the sessions. Stay tuned for others. You're if those are saying thank you, you're very, very welcome. And have a wonderful day, evening, morning, whatever it is on this. Enjoy this day on planet Earth, wherever you are. Take care, folks. Thank you.
Okay.